Armando, thank you for your great session with Kevin on the development process for the screenplay for In the Loop. I was wondering if you could possibly, for our web viewers, expand upon the chicken stock approach to screenwriting.
Chicken stock theory of screenwriting, which is, I often compare the way we get, first of all, a script and then a cut to how you make chicken stock, which is you add lots of ingredients and it looks massive, but then you reduce it to the kind of the bare essence, and then you add more ingredients till it gets massive again, and then reduce that and add and reduce, and at each stage along the way, that's what we do. We come up with a story and we elaborate the story and take the plot threads of the different elements of the story in different directions to see where they go, and it becomes an unwieldy mess. So I then try and simplify that and structure it a bit so it's something a bit more practical. And then I ask the writers to turn that story into a script very, very quickly. So they're not thinking too much about it, but they're just getting words down on the page so we have something to work with. And then once I can see that, once I've got something in my hands, I feel we've got something, you know, we've got more ingredients to work with. And that's when I start going through it and changing lines here, but putting big notes in saying, you know, let's change all this, let's kill off that character, he's not working, she's a bit dull, let's change her, let's move this to that building there and take these 5 people out and put these 2 new people in. So still big changes in the script. I asked them to go away and write another script on the basis of that, and then we reduce it again. We pass the script to each writer, takes a bit of the script and that someone else has written and rewrites it, and we all swap bits of scripts. So in that process the script's getting bigger and bigger and bigger again, and then we reduce it again to a document that we can then use to cast with. But the casting process is fairly early on. I like to cast people at early stages so the writers can then see who the cast are, what this person actually physically looks like, how she talks, that sort of thing. We rewrite the script on the basis of that. It becomes bigger again. We go into the rehearsals. I ask the cast to improvise around the script because I want to get an element of naturalism and sense of the characters being really fleshed out. That inevitably leads to more material being generated, but the writers are always there at the rehearsal process so that they can take that material and boil it down again back into the script. And we go into the shoot with a script that still feels a little bit too long, but I always feel you can't tell. Sometimes, you know, your favourite bit on the script is the bit when you come to shoot it is the least interesting, and yet sometimes a little throwaway remark or moment on the script is the thing that suddenly lights up, you know, when you shoot it. So I can't tell, and so I shoot as much as I can, and I leave as much in as I can until we shoot. And so inevitably we end up with another baggy assembly, and the first cut for In the Loop was about 4.5 hours long, but I knew that more you know, I wanted to make a film that was only about 90 to 100 minutes long. So the final making of the chicken stock was the 4.5 to 5 months of editing, of getting it down from 4.5 hours to 100 minutes, and so paring all that down again.
Writing is equal parts creating and destroying.
But it is, and it's also, you know, having great writers who aren't precious about generating material that might get, you know, changed or altered or cut. And I think for the actors, though, they're inspired to improvise if they are confident that they're working with a script that is watertight. You know, so we spend a lot of time. It's almost 2 contradictory processes. One is locking the script down till it's absolutely as tight and as good as I want it to be, but at the same time encouraging the actors to be as loose with that script as they can, because it's only that way that you get. I just like to be surprised, and I like the method not to determine what it is that's going to happen on screen. I want to be surprised by what happens. So all these elements of casting and script writing are all being focused on that one thing, which is what is happening in front of the camera.
And to a certain extent, and it wouldn't be as easy, but a writer on their own, in their study, could go through the same sort of process.
Well, I sort of ask people to do that. I say, right, well, let's write that scene, but why don't you go away and have a think about, you know, who the people are in this scene, and ask yourself what their interests are and what, you know, what they've got going on after the scene happens, or what's happening back home, and so just to introduce elements of that sort of reality. You know, I don't know how easy it is to do on your own, but certainly when I'm casting people, I ask them to come as characters, and I sort of interview them as characters. I keep telling them it's not about trying to come up with lots of funny stuff, because the writers will do that, but it's about coming up with the reality of that person. And very often, when you stay in character, they introduce elements of reality that seem so mundane, but actually are very funny because they feel real. And when you see these sort of mundane moments against the backdrop of the big story, somehow there's a sort of comic contrast there that you couldn't quite predict if you were just sitting writing on your own.
Very good. Thank you.